Greetings, fellow space explorers! Are you ready to blast off on a journey through the vast expanses of interpersonal relationships? In this transmission, we'll be discussing the anxious-avoidant attachment dynamic, a common relationship pattern that can occur between individuals with different attachment styles. You see, attachment style refers to the way we form and maintain emotional bonds with others. Some folks have an anxious attachment style, which means they might worry about being rejected or abandoned, and may try to cling onto their relationships tightly. Anxious attachment is typically caused by inconsistent or insensitive parenting during childhood, where child emotional needs are not met in a reliable or responsive manner. This can lead the child to develop feelings of insecurity and anxiety in relationships as an adult. On the other hand, some people have an avoidant attachment style and may have a fear of intimacy, leading them to distance themselves from others to protect themselves from getting hurt and losing their autonomy. This type of attachment typically caused by overbearing or controlling parenting during childhood, where the child's autonomy is not respected and their emotional expressions is discouraged. This can lead the child to develop feelings of emotional distance and difficulty forming closer relationships as an adult. When these two attachment styles intersect, it can create a back and forth dynamic, with one person seeking closeness and the other pulling away. We'll delve deeper into this dynamic and offer some tips on how to navigate it in relationships. So, have you ever noticed a pattern of constant push and pull in your relationships? This could be a sign of anxious-avoidant attachment dynamic. It can be really tough on both partners, and it can feel like you're constantly chasing or withdrawing from each other. Here are a few examples of what this might look like. The anxious person might try to get close to their partner by texting or calling a lot, trying to hang out or wanting a lot of reassurance. But if the avoidant person doesn't respond or doesn't want to spend a lot of time together, the anxious person might get upset or anxious. On the other hand, the avoidant person might cancel plans or avoid making concrete commitments, which can make the anxious person feel rejected or abandoned. They might also become emotionally distant or closed off when the anxious person tries to get closer. And then there's the physical stuff. The anxious person might try to initiate physical touch or affection, but the avoidant person might pull away or avoid it. It's a tough dynamic to be in, but there are ways to work through it and improve your relationships. So, have you ever noticed that you and your partner have difficulty communicating? Yeah, we all have been there. It can be really tough to get your partner to open up and share their feelings, and sometimes you might feel like they're just too distant or closed off. On the flip side, your partner might feel like you're always needing emotional support, and it can be overwhelming for them to communicate their own feelings. Do you get anxious or upset if your partner doesn't respond to your text or calls right away? On the other hand, do you feel overwhelmed by your partner's need for constant communication? Do you struggle to understand why your partner is distant or closed off, while they feel like you're too emotionally demanding? It is important to remember that difficulties with communication can lead to misunderstandings and conflicts in the relationships. If you're struggling to feel understood and supported by your partner, it might be a good idea to work on your communication skills and consider seeking professional help. Remember, it's always a good idea to communicate openly and honestly with your partner. Another common issue that can arise in a relationship with an anxious-avoidant attachment dynamic: difficulty with trust. It can be tough for the anxious partner to trust that their significant other will be there for them, and for the avoidant partner to let themselves be vulnerable and trust their partner with their feelings. This can lead to all sorts of behaviors, like the anxious person constantly checking in or becoming jealous, while the avoidant person may become defensive or withdraw. This difficulty with trust can create conflicts and emotional distance in a relationship, making it hard for both partners to feel supported and secure. Don't let trust issues hold you back from a healthy, fulfilling relationship. Are you struggling with intimacy in your relationship? It sounds like you might be experiencing an anxious-avoidant attachment dynamic. Here's the deal. The anxious person may crave intimacy and affection, while the avoidant person might feel smothered or overwhelmed by too much closeness. This can lead to a lack of intimacy in the relationship, which can be a source of tension and frustration for both partners. It's understandable that the anxious person might struggle with feeling of insecurity and try to compensate by seeking more intimacy, while the avoidant person might struggle with feelings of vulnerability and distance themselves to protect themselves from being hurt. But here's the thing. Difficulty with intimacy can lead to emotional distance in the relationship and make it hard for both partners to feel connected and supported. So what can you do about it? Communicate openly and honestly with your partner and work together to find a balance that works for both of you. Don't let a lack of intimacy hold you back from achieving a strong and loving bond with your partner. In conclusion, it's a pattern that can show up in a lot of relationships, and it can be really tough for both partners. But here's the thing. All relationships have their ups and downs. It's totally normal to face challenges and struggles. The most important thing is not to let this dynamic hold you back from enjoying each other in healthy ways. You can work through it with open communication, compassion, and a willingness to come together as a team. Keep fighting for a strong and loving relationship and don't lose hope, even when things get tough. That is all for now, fellow space travelers. Stay connected.
Subscribe. Watch my other videos. Subscribe.